The spring of 1815 arrived in London with sharp, unforgiving winds that rattled the windows of the grand houses around Grosvenor Square. Inside Lord and Lady Cunningham's ballroom, however, warmth and light ruled. Hundreds of candles glowed against gold-framed mirrors, music floated from a string quartet, and polite laughter filled the air. It was another perfect London evening, designed to impress, to display, and above all, to secure marriages. Sebastian Hartley, the 6th Duke of Ravenrest, stood near a marble column with a glass of champagne he had not touched. At 30, he was everything society admired and resented. Tall, broad-shouldered, dark-haired and possessed of calm grey eyes that missed nothing, he carried his title as if it weighed heavily rather than gloriously. Women watched him from every corner of the room, mothers whispered, futures were planned in silent calculations. "Your Grace," Lady Victoria Huntington said breathlessly, drifting toward him in silken feathers. "How delightful to see you tonight. I was just telling Mama how your presence improves any gathering." Sebastian offered a polite smile that stopped short of warmth. "You are very kind, Lady Victoria." She leaned closer, perfectly positioned. "Perhaps you might claim the next dance?" "I have practiced the quadrille endlessly. I fear I am poor company this evening," he replied smoothly. "Business occupies my thoughts." It was the same response he gave every season, every ball, every evening like this. He danced when required, spoke when necessary, and endured endless admiration he had never asked for. No one ever wondered what he wanted. No one ever asked what he thought when the lights dimmed and the music stopped. Still escaping proposals with military precision, his friend Lord Edmund Fairfax said, appearing beside him with 2 fresh glasses. 3 young ladies in under 5 minutes, a new record. Sebastian sighed. "Edmund, I have done this for 12 years. Every season brings the same faces with new gowns and identical ambitions. I am exhausted." "Perhaps you are looking in the wrong places." Sebastian raised an eyebrow. "Name one woman here who is not hunting a title." Edmund opened his mouth, then closed it, conceding with a grin. The evening dragged on. Sebastian danced, smiled, nodded, and felt nothing. It was nearly midnight when Edmund returned, looking amused. "You must see this," he said. "If it is another hopeful debutante, I refuse." "It is the opposite." Curiosity stirred. Sebastian followed Edmund through the crowd, to a quiet space near the refreshment tables. The room shifted as people noticed him, parting without thought. Then he saw her. She was not beautiful by London standards. Her chestnut hair was arranged simply, without jewels or elaborate curls. Her pale green gown was neat, but clearly not new. Her face was calm, intelligent and unadorned, but it was her posture that caught him. She stood straight, uninviting, focused entirely on the conversation before her. "Your father was a good man," Lord Cunningham was saying gently. "His loss is deeply felt." "Thank you, my lord," the young woman replied. "He faced his illness with courage. His greatest concern was for my sister and me." "You are managing the estate now?" "With guidance, yes. We are not seeking charity or matches. We will return home once the season ends." Sebastian felt something shift. Edmund leaned in. "Lady Arabella Sinclair. Her father died 6 months ago. She manages the estate herself, completely uninterested in London society." "Nonsense," Sebastian murmured. "Every woman wants something." "Watch." Lord Rutherford approached with confident charm. "Lady Arabella, might I have the honour of the next dance?" "I am not dancing this evening," she replied calmly. "Surely one dance." "I was clear, my lord." The dismissal was final. Rutherford retreated, irritated. Sebastian stared. "Introduce me." Edmund smiled. "Are you certain?" "All the more reason." Lord Cunningham made the introduction. Sebastian bowed. "Lady Arabella, my condolences." She curtsied, meeting his eyes directly, without calculation or flattery. "I understand you oversee your estate," Sebastian said. "I do." "That is no small task." "It must be done." He surprised himself by asking, "Would you dance with me?" Her expression softened with weariness. "No, Your Grace." The refusal landed harder than expected. Perhaps later? Unlikely. She dismissed him politely and turned away. Edmund laughed quietly as they walked off. She refused you, twice. Interesting, Sebastian said. The next morning, Lady Arabella Sinclair sat in the modest drawing-room of the townhouse she shared with her sister, studying household accounts by weak daylight. Rain streaked the windows. You are frowning again, Catherine said gently. These numbers matter. You did not dance once last night. I watched you dance. You refused the Duke of Ravenrest. Arabella stiffened. He was being polite. He looked interested. He was bored. Catherine smiled knowingly. What if he was sincere? Arabella shook her head. Men like him do not pursue women like me. A knock interrupted them. The Duke of Ravenrest, the housekeeper announced. Arabella froze. Moments later, Sebastian stood in their modest drawing-room, out of place and imposing. I wish to know you better, he said simply. They spoke of land, crops and tenants. He listened, truly listened. It unsettled her. Before leaving, he invited them to a garden party. She declined. The flowers began arriving anyway. Chance meetings followed. Arabella grew distant. Finally, at a bookshop, she spoke plainly. I am not interested in your attention. I am not playing games, he said. That is what makes this insulting. He withdrew after that. Days passed. No flowers. No Duke. Arabella told herself it was relief. But the silence hurt more than she expected. Then came the charity auction. Arabella attended only for the sake of her estate. When the Turner property was announced, she bid with trembling resolve. 3,000, she said, reaching her limit. A pause. 3,500, a familiar voice said. Her heart dropped. Sebastian Hartley stood across the room, paddle raised. The hammer fell. Sold. Arabella stood frozen, fury burning through her veins. As she turned to leave, his voice stopped her. How dare you, she said quietly. How dare you toy with me and ruin my family's future? He tried to speak. Stay away from me, she said. From my sister. From my life. She walked away, unaware that everything between them had just shattered. And neither of them yet knew how much it would cost to mend it. The days after the charity auction passed in a blur of cold restraint for Arabella Sinclair. She rose early, answered letters, reviewed accounts, and spoke only when necessary. Her voice was calm. Her manner steady. But beneath that calm, anger and humiliation burned like a hidden fire. She replayed the scene again and again, the way the room had turned when Sebastian's voice named the higher bid, the certainty she had felt that her worst fears were true. Catherine tried to soothe her, but Arabella would not hear it. He humiliated me, she said firmly, publicly. Deliberately. Bella, Catherine pleaded, what if there is another explanation? There is none that matters. She wrote to Mr. Whitmore with renewed urgency, arranging loans and compromises that would keep Meadowbrook Hall afloat without the Turner land. Pride demanded it. Independence required it. Across London, Sebastian Hartley paced the length of his study like a caged animal. The fire burned low, forgotten. Edmund watched him with thin patience. You should have told her, Edmund said at last. Before the bidding. Before any of it. I thought anonymity would spare her pride, Sebastian snapped. I never imagined she would think I meant to harm her. You forgot one thing, Edmund replied. She does not see you as generous. She sees you as powerful. And power has always frightened her. Sebastian stopped pacing. The truth of it struck hard. She thinks I used her. Yes. Silence followed. I meant to give her the land, Sebastian said quietly. No obligation, no expectation. Then you must tell her that, Edmund said. And accept that she may still refuse. The deed arrived at the Sinclair townhouse 2 mornings later, delivered with a short letter written in Sebastian's hand. Arabella read it once, then again, her fingers tightening on the parchment. Catherine watched her face change from anger to shock to something like grief. "He bought it for us," Catherine whispered. Arabella sank into a chair. "He never intended to keep it," Catherine continued. "He meant to protect the land." Arabella closed her eyes. The certainty she had clung to cracked painfully. That evening, Arabella wrote back with careful words. She thanked him. She apologized. She refused the gift, offering instead to buy the land at the price she had planned. Sebastian read her letter with a mixture of relief and longing. She was willing to speak with him. That was enough. He rode to her townhouse without delay. They met in the small garden behind the house, where Arabella stood in a simple dress, dirt on her hands from pruning roses. She looked real, unguarded and painfully dear. "You look lovely," he said before thinking. She flushed. "You should not say that. I should say it more." They spoke plainly. No strategies, no performances. "I cared," Sebastian said, clumsily. Foolishly, but sincerely. Arabella's voice trembled. "I have spent my life being overlooked. I did not know how to believe you. I am asking you to try." When she said yes, quietly and bravely, something inside Sebastian settled for the first time in years. But London did not rest. Whispers spread fast, carried by silk and envy. Lady Victoria Huntington and Lady Elena Fitzwilliam sharpened their smiles and sharpened their words. "She has trapped him," Lady Victoria said sweetly at tea. "A plain woman with ambition is always dangerous." "It is a pity," Lady Elena replied, stirring her cup. "Men are so easily misled." Lady Beatrice Wentworth, listening nearby, frowned. She had met Arabella. She knew better. The warning reached Arabella quickly. "They are turning society against you," Lady Beatrice said gently, "and against him." Arabella felt the old fear rise again, not for herself, but for Sebastian. That night she withdrew, she declined visitors, she avoided him, she convinced herself she was protecting him. Sebastian returned day after day, only to be turned away. "She will not see you," Catherine said helplessly. "She believes she is saving you." Sebastian left, jaw tight, heart heavy. Then the letter came. He wrote with honesty, not command. He spoke of love without condition, courage without demand. He asked her to stand with him, not for society but for themselves. Arabella read the letter at dawn, tears soaking the page. He loved her. Not her estate, not her duty, her. She dressed carefully that evening. Not to impress, but to stand tall. At Carlton House, the music swelled and the lights glittered. Sebastian waited, refusing distraction, refusing despair. When Arabella appeared at the top of the stairs, the room seemed to still. She was not transformed into someone else, she was simply revealed. Sebastian crossed the floor to her without hesitation. "You came," he said. "I am done hiding," she replied. Together, they faced the room. The dance was imperfect, the whispers cruel, but their hands did not part. When he asked her to marry him, her yes rang clearer than any judgment. And in that moment, the story London told itself changed forever. But the final test of their courage was yet to come. The ballroom at Carlton House erupted into sound the moment Arabella's answer left her lips. Gasps rippled through the crowd, followed by hurried whispers that bounced from silk to silk like sparks. Some faces showed delight, others shock, and a few barely concealed anger. Sebastian felt none of it. The world had narrowed to the woman in his arms, her hand gripping his coat, as though the room itself might tilt without his hold. "You are certain?" he said softly, his voice meant only for her. "Yes," Arabella replied, steady now. "I am." He smiled then, a smile few had ever seen, open and unguarded. Without ceremony he drew her closer and kissed her in full view of London society. It was not a grand kiss, but a tender one, filled with promise rather than display. When they parted, applause broke out in scattered bursts. Edmund Fairfax clapped loudest of all. "Well," Edmund said cheerfully, when Sebastian turned, "that should silence a few doubters." "It will enrage others," Arabella said quietly. "Let them rage," Sebastian replied. "They no longer matter." The engagement was announced formally the next morning. By noon, all of London had an opinion. Some praised the romance, others questioned Arabella's worth. The gossip papers were merciless. Sebastian read none of them. Arabella read one and burned it. They spent their days together under proper supervision, walking in the park, discussing estate matters, speaking honestly for the first time without fear. Sebastian listened as Arabella spoke of her father, of the land, of her doubts. "I never thought love would look like this," she admitted one afternoon. "I thought it would be louder, flashier." "So did I," Sebastian said, "but this feels solid, real." The first open attack came from Lady Victoria Huntington. 2 weeks before the wedding, a rumour spread that Arabella had been secretly engaged to a tenant farmer, that she had broken it off when Sebastian appeared. It was a cruel lie, designed to shame her beyond recovery. Arabella learned of it at breakfast. She sat very still. "I knew this would happen," she said calmly. Sebastian was furious. "I will confront her." "No," Arabella said firmly. "You will not. She is attacking your honor. And if you fight her, they will say I sent you," Arabella replied. "Let truth speak for itself." Mr. Whitmore arrived that afternoon with ledgers and letters, calmly dismantling the rumor with facts. The lie collapsed under scrutiny. Lady Victoria withdrew from society soon after, her influence weakened beyond repair. The wedding day arrived under a clear autumn sky. Ravenrest Manor glowed with warmth, its stone walls softened by golden leaves. The chapel was filled with close friends, family, and a carefully chosen few from society. Arabella walked down the aisle on Mr. Whitmore's arm. She wore ivory silk and her mother's pearls. She did not try to look like a duchess. She looked like herself. Sebastian watched her approach with a stillness that startled even Edmund. When she reached him, he took her hands as though they were something precious and fragile. Their vows were simple, their voices steady. "I choose you," Sebastian said, "every day." "I choose you," Arabella replied. "Even when it is hard." When the vicar pronounced them husband and wife, Sebastian kissed her with quiet reverence. Several guests wiped their eyes. Even those who had doubted could not deny what stood before them. At the wedding breakfast, laughter filled the hall. Catherine glowed with happiness. Edmund toasted the couple with humour and affection. The Dowager Duchess studied Arabella carefully, then smiled. "You have given my son something I could not," she said later. "Peace." That evening, Sebastian led Arabella onto the terrace as the sun dipped low. "I have one more gift," he said. She frowned. "You have already given me more than I can name. This one matters." He handed her a document. The deed to Meadowbrook Hall, secured in trust, independent and protected. "You are my equal," he said simply, "not my possession." Arabella could not speak. She only reached for him, and held on. 3 years later, Meadowbrook Hall thrived. The fields were healthy, the tenants prosperous. Arabella managed the estate with confidence and care, her decisions respected and trusted. The nursery echoed with laughter as their son played at his mother's feet. Sebastian watched from the doorway, contentment softening every sharp edge he once carried. "Do you ever regret choosing me?" Arabella asked quietly one afternoon. Sebastian crossed the room and knelt before her, meeting her eyes. "Never," he said. "You taught me that love is not about admiration. It is about truth." Arabella smiled, resting a hand over his. Outside, the land stretched wide and full of promise. Inside, they built a life grounded in courage, trust, and the quiet strength of choosing each other. London never fully stopped talking. But it no longer mattered. They had won something far greater than approval. They had found home.